The dream brought me into the darkness step by step from the sunlight. The surroundings are no longer bright. The dark clouds covered the sun, the strong wind blew my body up and fell into the mud again. By the swamp, I grabbed a weeping willow and struggled to support the nightmare. I always wake up people at critical moments and sit up on the bed in pain. He wiped a handful of sweat from his face and went downstairs to take out a can of beer from the refrigerator. The cool breeze of the air conditioner hit, and I couldn't help but shivered, and I realized that my whole body was wet. Looking back, Macau isn't that weeping willow. At this time, we can only grab this straw and make a last try. I hope that the weeping willow can withstand my empty body. I took out my phone and found that there was still no fresh information added. After drinking a can of beer board, the effect of alcohol was as time as the meal time, and I felt a rumbling sound in my stomach. Wash your face and put on your clothes. When the door was closed, he quickly turned back, took out 200,000 Hong Kong dollars from the safe and put it in his pocket. Alone in Macau. I got up and ordered some boiled flavor, a steamed pork ribs, and a cup of soup. It was past 6 o'clock, and the hotel waiter told him that the dishes could not be served for about 15 minutes. I turned my head when I was bored and saw a table full of people. Give the waiter an instruction and make 2 steps in 3 steps to get closer. He glanced at the display screen and saw that there were 9 idol shops in front, and now 2 more idol shops are open. Those who stood and sat were all pressing their chips on their leisure time. Seeing that the official was about to open the card, I hurriedly squeezed in, took out Hong Kong dollars from my pocket, pulled out a stack of numbers and threw them on the table. He turned his head and said to everyone, sorry, take a ride. To be honest, it is indeed annoying to see a personal exchange of chips suddenly appear after being scared, but seeing such a good road, I don't care about so much. The boss was 26,000 yuan, and he spread the Hong Kong dollars with the official, counted and looked up to confirm with me. I nodded, but I put the chips on my spare time, then I exited the crowd, stood at a table next to me, stared at the display screen. But my ears always listen to the movements over there. Some things on the poker table are very strange and can't be explained clearly, so they often appear. A table of people is united and smooth sailing. If a person suddenly raises the bet, another person will change his aura. If I lose, I promise to disappear instantly and I will never let resentment spread on my head. It didn't take long to delay, cheers rang out. I still felt that the way was not taken away, so I went over and tried it, and put it all in my spare time. The guy who played the card was a young man in his 20s, but his speed of looking at the cards was not proportional to his age. He looked at poker several times over and over again. After rubbing and rubbing, he was almost unrecognizable and threw it to Higuan with pride. At 8 o'clock, a beautiful sound of passing sounds sounded around him, and it came to an abrupt end after flipping everyone and the official cards. The mood disappeared instantly. Forget it, let's have a meal first. I thought about eating in my mind, stared at the display screen, pretended to be like a bite, and I had to eat no matter what I won or lost. Find the perfect excuse for yourself. After losing 54,000, he was thrown to Higuan, but he ended up with a bargaining chip. Most of the people around him also put their chips to their leisure time. I don't look at my bets, but since I haven't opened the cards yet, the young man and the official just opened the cards. Looking at his hands that were holding the cards, he trembled slightly, and he opened 6 o'clock, with no initial firmness on his face, and an ominous premonition surged into his heart. The people around him shouted together, and without any hesitation, he took out the Liuha too casually. I looked at Higuan blankly. At this moment, he was like a lion with a bloody mouth, waiting to fight back. I didn't eat a bite of food, and I instantly went from winning 26,000 to losing 80,000. Everyone around them was exposed and scattered, and only the young man who had just opened the card was still persistent in pressing the chips to the idol. Looking back, the 2 dealers just now were killed directly, and maybe they would walk out of the dealer after the sword was finished. He counted 20,000 yuan and handed it to Higuan to press it on the bank. The boss looked at the card and wanted to sit down. Higuan looked at me, but he still didn't sit down. He reminded him with kindness. I smiled and shook my head, indicating that I would like to issue the cards with the official. The guy took the idol cards, and the usual slow frequency, rubbed them little by little, looked at the long side, then took another poker, and continued his previous shouting. He looked at the 2 cards upside down twice, and then handed them to Higuan. He is one of the few people I hate the most at the poker table. The most annoying thing about reading cards is that after reading cards, it is still mysterious and detained to the officials. Higuan spread his body on the table and used his hands to hold 2 terrible pokers, 7 or 8. Immediately afterwards, I quickly opened the bank card, with only 2 points. Higuan pulled out the poker from the card hole and muttered that he thought it was too thin. The young man held the poker with one hand and pushed the eyes on the bridge of his nose with the other, rubbing his body bit by bit. I paid 20,000 yuan this time. To be honest, I really didn't have much pressure. The subsequent reading book is relatively thick, and this is also the profit in recent days, so although I lost 80,000 at this time, I still have a relatively calm mind. But when I saw the young man watching cards, I was really angry. It was shorter. After seeing the long side, I turned around and looked at the short side again, and then blew out vigorously. I thought to myself that it should be life and death on both sides. I often see gamblers need to blow air in their mouths, and what they need to push is to hit the bottom of the card table with their knees. If I could really blow the ceiling so magically, I would press my wealth on it and break my knee. After waiting for dozens of seconds, the young man looked a little regretful and reluctantly handed it to Higuan. As I guessed, it was on both sides, but there was a little more in the middle. I calmly took the compensation chips and placed them all on the dealer. The young man stared at the display screen with his eyes tightly. After looking at it for a long time, he picked up 3,000 chips and smashed it hard on his idol again. If I hadn't hoped to get back the 60,000 lost before eating, I would have looked at him. I really don't play with him at this speed. Not seeing or feeling upset. Taking advantage of his chances of scrambling cards, I took out my phone and opened WeChat. Still no added information. There were murmurings coming from the poker table. I glanced at him, my cheeks were tense, my hands were exposed due to excessive force, and my veins were still muttering. Then he smashed the table like anger and locked the card. Can you have fun playing cards with your official buddy? Every time you finish reading it, isn't it a waste of time? I joked to him, I like to let Higuan open the cards. As Higuan turned on Zhangqi, he muttered without raising his head. I raised my hand and signaled to open the village with Guangkai, and said with a smile, then let the squad leader drive it directly. Do you look at it for a long time and then hold it back, pretending to be mysterious or playing deep? Seeing Higuan open 2 flower cards of the dealer, he looked up and said to me, it is my pleasure to watch cards, and it is my responsibility to open cards. Besides, I dare not. The plane said that it was not daring. The plane was not in a hurry to get out of customs. What's the hurry? I pulled open the chair and sat down. I asked the official, the squad leader is not a sign, can I come to see you? In theory, the cards sent can only be viewed by one person, but because the dealer is a card opened by the official, I have to look at the cards to make up for it. I'm not sure if this is okay. He and the officials handed me the card and said, you want to see it, just sit down. The long whip, the 3-dial short whip was lifted up, and a little over his head. Holding the poker, he asked the official, do the squad leader have specified the time to read the cards? He doesn't leave the card, doesn't stand up, and he will just see it. That's good, this card is interesting, I want to watch it slowly. Push it up a little, at least not to say it, I let him feel the feeling of waiting. I didn't look down, and I just pressed the cards on the table with both hands, slowly adjusting them, and just played with them for a minute. Looking at the young man's anxious eyes, I felt secretly amused. Are you a trick? Are you tired? I was so painful that I couldn't run. A familiar voice suddenly came from behind.